Jim, what's going on with you and Matt Hardy and wife?
The House of Hardy is not hardly in love with Jim Cornette anymore. I hate to say that, but I don't know. Possibly it's something I said. Because people often say to me, "Hey, Jim, what do you think about so-and-so?" And I often tell them, I don't know. Because I turned on my Twitter machine yesterday afternoon to retweet some of the YouTube clips that have been put out. So keep the fans apprised of what's going on our YouTube channel. And I don't follow Matt, but either somebody sent it to me or whatever. But there it is, big as Christmas. Matt was commenting to someone who had said something and basically said that, well, it's the same old thing. It's the people who don't adapt and change with the times are left behind. And I used to have respect for JC, but not so much his shock jock gig. Like they're back to he says all this stuff just to shock people, not because it's fucking true, and it's observably true and demonstrably true, and everybody with a lick of sense can see that it's true. I'm just trying to shock people. I'm a shock jock. Killing puppies. I'm for it. Call 888-555-1212 and talk back to me. Oh, blow me. So basically, I just wrote him back and said, Matt, unfortunately, with the dog and pony show that you guys seem to call wrestling these days, that's why I'm glad I'm done with the whole thing. And I can just give my opinions. And my opinion is I used to have respect for you before you began teleporting to other dimensions and changing clothes in a fucking ice machine. And then I went on about my day. Well, Matt's been trying to be nice and professional, but he'll say those who don't adapt and change stuff again, and JC, blah, 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 which once again, even many people on Twitter were intelligent enough and perceptive enough to tweet back, adapt and change is not always for the better, and some people choose not to fucking adapt and change if it makes them do stupid shit. And so Matt and I had a couple of back and forths, and I like Matt. I'm disappointed. I'll get to his better half in a minute, or his other half. But I'm not trying to promo Matt, but I'm not going to hide the fact that, I thought this was a guy who could make a difference in the way some of these fucking jacklegs think these days, and he's gone off the deep end worse than all of them. And everybody knows that I've had nothing but good things to say about Matt Hardy until the last year and a half when he joined the fucking Lollipop Guild of Wrestling and started teleporting himself and changing clothes underwater in a swimming pool and in ice machines, and became 5,000 years old and adopted a goddamn Bad Hammer Films accent and looks like a cross between Vincent Price and Beatrice Arthur or whatever the fuck he was doing. I've always said great things about Matt. Matt, of the two Hardys, I actually thought was the most business-minded. Matt's the guy. I brought Matt Hardy to Ring of Honor in 2011 or 2012, one or the other year. I've worked with Matt Hardy there. He was an invited superstar. You know who he was? He was Matt Hardy. And he'd been a top wrestling star for 15 years, and everybody knew who he was, except he was still only in his 30s, and he could go in the ring, and he was perfect for Ring of Honor to try to give those guys some experience, and I thought teach them something, and he did quite well. And working with him, it's not like that if Matt Hardy had said, I've got an idea for a promo or a match or a finish or whatever, that nobody was going to listen to him. Of course we would, and we did. I never gave him a script and said, Matt, here's your interview written down for you. We said, Matt, here's your match. Here's what you're talking about. Do your promo. Or on his matches, do you think we, like Savage and Steamboat, wrote out everything 1 foot in front of another for him to do? No. We booked him because he was Matt fucking Hardy. And he had matches. And he never said to any of us, hey, what about if I get thrown into the ice machine and come out as a different person? Or Is there any way that I could teleport out of the ring magically? I would just disappear and come back in the lake of reincarnation? Or I don't ever remember him saying it might be a good idea in this match for one of these guys to fucking spear me off a goddamn forklift and give me brain damage. He never said he wanted to be 5,000 years old. He spoke in a North Carolina accent, not in a goddamn ambivalent British accent. He was Matt Hardy. And several years ago, I saw him at one of those fan fests and wrestling events that the big time wrestling was running in the Carolinas with the legend shows and the nostalgia shows. They sold out Spartanburg 2 or 3 times, 2,000 people apiece. They drew 1,000-something people in Raleigh. They were doing big gates in these towns in the Carolinas, old Crockett towns, with the rock and roll and the midnight reunion and me and Baby Doll and the Hardys. And I said, you know what? You guys are so over in North Carolina. Matt, you know everybody in the business. You used to run your own shows. Now that you've got a name, now that you're a legend, you make contacts with TV stations, with radio stations. Everybody, especially in Western North Carolina, everybody knows the Hardys. He could be the guy because he knows everybody in the business. He could book them, or he could represent another company running big shows in big buildings in the Carolinas that would draw because of the local publicity he could get and the names he could contact. I said, boy, you ought to have a fucking territory here set up. And what does he do? About 4 or 5 years later, again, he's teleporting himself to other dimensions and changing clothes in an ice machine, and somehow this is professional wrestling. And this was the natural evolution of what he's been doing for the past 20 years. What the fuck? So, yes, I've praised almost everything Matt Hardy has ever done until a year and a half ago. If he's disappointed in me now, not because I'm a shock jock, Matt. A shock jock. And hey, wait a minute. Let's get Baba Booey to make some prank phone calls. They can't stand it. They can't stand it that I don't like this shit, and I don't have to. And I don't want their fucking money because I don't need it. And I don't want to be involved in wrestling anymore because it's a goddamn joke. And they don't know how to combat this. And I'm going to tell everybody in no uncertain terms why I think they're wiping their feet on the wrestling business, because it offends me as a wrestling fan. But anyway, I felt that I would communicate to Matt exactly what the problem is, as if he didn't know. No, it's not because I'm a shock jock, Matt. And I appreciate you guys are, you got the smell of your own farts in cologne bottles now, and you think you can't do any wrong. But yeah, a lot of people agree with me. But people who used to watch wrestling, all those people that don't anymore. So you don't respect my current positions, and I don't respect what you've done with a great career. So nobody was saying, motherfucker, fuck you, hope you die. There were some pointed comments because he said something about me and I said something back to him. I didn't even quote tweet. Is that what they call it? The quote tweet when they put it in the box? I didn't even quote tweet a couple of responses to him. I just responded to his individual tweet because I wasn't looking for news as much as just to let him know that I was as disappointed in him as he is in me. But there was still no fuck yous going on. However, she's had a habit of doing it in the past. I guess she just has to run and pick up for anybody anytime anybody says anything about Matt. But his lovely wife, who I've met, I believe, one time, who I don't know personally and didn't say anything about and wasn't speaking to, I believe she used to be in the wrestling business. She's the artist barely known as Rebby Sky. She writes back and says, well, Dog and Pony Show. Well, Cornette, I thought you'd like the circus. Most clowns do. See, I wasn't talking to her. And because I do have respect for what Matt Hardy has accomplished in the past, I responded to her as politely as possible, Chickadee, you don't know what you're doing here. I was talking to your husband. I wasn't talking to you, and you don't know me. So just stay out of it, because I don't play nice, and I don't really give a fuck. And that's it. And I haven't heard any response.
And that's it.
And if there's no response, there ain't gonna be no response, because I don't want people to be accusing me of saying horrible things about somebody's wife that's not involved in this. I haven't seen, if I see Rebby Hardy teleporting, the most I've said, she was playing the piano for some reason that we couldn't figure out in one of their independent film productions. And I believe that's the most that I've critiqued of her. Until I see her teleporting or fucking engaging in song and dance routines on their television or whatever, and doing phony wrestling, I'm not going to go further with it. Or she said what she had to say, and I said what I had to say, and we can leave it there. But the idea that if she continues to rattle me on Twitter, that I will not... Here's the problem, though. I'd have to do research to really get deep down and personal and make her cry and or hate me forever and want me to die. I'd have to do research, and I don't have time because I don't know enough about her or anything she's ever done to be specifically particular, which I like to be when I take people apart. So to prevent me from having to do any other research and say a lot of horrible things about somebody I don't even fucking know, we can just leave each other alone. And I hope that's what happens. It would probably be more entertaining for many of the listeners if she didn't, but that's up to her. But what the... They're defending now as evolution of wrestling and as things evolve and you must adapt and change or be left out. Yeah, I'm left out on purpose because I don't want to be involved in this. As I've said before, if it became fashionable to eat cow shit, I'd have to stay unfashionable. I'm still not going to eat the cow shit. What can they not... not the smog, but the smug at All Friends Wrestling is so thick that they can't realize that, no, this is not some revolutionary, groundbreaking shit. This is bad wrestling, booked badly, that not very many people are watching. And we're pointing out why. I can get as goddamn deep down and personal as you want to get. I'll get kicked off a variety of social media platforms. I don't give a fuck. It would give me more free time with my day. But nobody is going to give me any goddamn smart-ass comment and not hear something back, unless I either don't hear it or actually just consider them so unimportant that I don't have time to comment. This falls into cracks somewhere in between.
Shock jock.
Shock jock.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to say this, because at the end, his argument became, you're not changing with the times, and you pointed out, well, there's a difference between growing with the times, changing with the times, and just desperately trying to latch on to something. There's a difference. And he came back with the whole you're a shock jock thing, and you're only talking about, or you're only, in quotes, I think it was hate. You're only hating AEW because you need to. For the record, almost every single month, the videos that get the most views, WWE. Or WWE-centered personalities, or people who just left WWE and end up in AEW.
Or wrestling history.
Or wrestling history.
Any number of things.
No, but the point is, it's not like he's AEW. It's not like that's the stuff that does the best, for us. And you can kind of track their trajectory, too, with the level of interest people have in certain wrestlers and certain clips. And other than when Matt Hardy debuted and a few of the stupid things he's been involved with, the bottom of the others list in terms of video priorities that we put up. But he wants to defend his work, and I understand.
But remember, I defended his work. Remember when that fucking, who's that moron that was running Impact for, you told me his name here when I asked that question to you the last time. Ed Nordholm.
Ed Nordholm.
And I met him, and he was a nice enough guy, but he didn't have a complete clue of what he was doing in the wrestling business. And when I came down there, that's just when in 2017, that's just when they tried to fuck Matt around and sue him over his gimmick. I never watched the whole TNA Broken Hardy thing because I figured if I did, I would start disliking the Hardys quicker than I did because it'd be some phony bullshit.
You would have.
But I did take Matt Hardy's side when I said they shouldn't sue a guy to try to take away a gimmick that he created for himself. That's bullshit, and that's the complete antithesis of the way you run the wrestling business, or the wrestling business should be run. And when Jeff Jarrett introduced me to Ed Nordholm, he made mention of saying, "Oh, so I'm the idiot that doesn't know anything about wrestling." I said, "Hello, Ed. Yes, apparently you are." But I was on Matt's side for that, and that's when that Ed Nordholm said, "Oh, that boy, I sure got a tongue lashing from old Rebby Hardy about all of that." I'm sorry. How many times have I apologized in the last year and a half for ever saying something good about X? Because all it is a disappointment when they turn out to be an idiot also. You can't let go of the spotlight. You can't fucking stand up for your principles. You can't tell some guy, CM Punk did. That's the quote that should be reverberating around the wrestling business these days. I don't want to be another guy doing bad television. So everybody else, for whatever reason, just went, "Oh, sure, we'll just goddamn have football field fuckery. And hey, it'd be great if so-and-so was burned alive and reincarnated or whatever the fuck. But I'm going to be over here taking a piss out of all of it because I'm offended on a personal basis. And I've reached a point in my personal life where I don't have to do dick all the shit I don't want to do except sign action figures and put up with the goddamn morning post office traffic. Everything else, I'm free to do what I want. And I want to tell some people when they're doing some bad, stupid, silly, phony fucking wrestling. Because that's all the enjoyment we've got left.
Can't believe you haven't accepted the genius of big money Matt Hardy and his stable.
I forgot.
Who don't notice him winking to the camera that I gave them a bad deal. Don't say anything.
Yeah, I forgot about after changing clothes in an ice machine, there's really not much you can do to top that on the stupid scale. But how about being the world's worst manager by actually telling people while you're doing it that you're screwing your fucking proteges? And then obviously winking and laughing like that everybody knows this is all horse shit and we're just doing the story that our amateur booker came up with. The fuck? Is that the way that all these people that have had a name and show up on this goddamn show want to be remembered for doing silly shit with a bunch of kids on television? Fuck.
And you and I have always had a different way of seeing Matt Hardy. And I think something that just happened in real time kind of...
I apologize.
Well, no, what I was going to say...
People say I never apologize. I apologize to you for seeing what you didn't see in Matt Hardy.
Well... It's even beyond that, because what I was going to say, where you and I traditionally have disagreed, is SportsCenter, ESPN SportsCenter. This segment is sponsored by SportsCenter. SportsCenter tweeted out, "Who is your favorite wrestler growing up?" And all of a sudden, everyone's jumping in with answers. Jeff Hardy just trended for this tweet. Who is your favorite wrestler growing up? And people have all sorts of Jeff Hardy tales. No one says Matt Hardy. He was Jeff's brother. I like Robert Gibson. I never wanted to see a singles run of Robert Gibson after 1990. And I'm not even, I hate to compare Matt Hardy to Robert Gibson. That's not fair. But Jeff was the star. Matt may have had a better head. Matt may have had a better potential booking mind. But he's just Jeff Hardy's brother doing wacky fucking shit.
I stand chastised. And that's what I always said. I said, Jeff has the charisma and is the flashy guy, but Matt's the anchor. He's the stable guy. He's the booking mind, the business mind. I can see him being a promoter, whatever. I apologize for all of that.
Him and his wife are like the Brandy and Cody of whatever wrestling trauma films are that they make.
Well, I was about to say, they can't even be the Brandy and Cody in AEW because they already have Brandy and Cody. So we're going to have another fucking situation where the obnoxious wife comes in to fucking horn in on some camera time? Or, can she just play the piano in the barn? I don't know.
I don't know, but Mr. Shock Jock, it's time for our next segment. Show me your tits.
Well, all right, Brian, if you insist, here you go. Hey!
No, but all kidding aside, I would have to think after the little bit of a beating you gave Matt Hardy on Twitter and the fear of a potential beating, or a beating is probably not the right word to use here, but a potential...
I'd back up on that transit. What about spanking? A little paddling.
A spanking. Maybe...
A spanking.
A spanking. Maybe she fears a spanking from you. Maybe not necessarily a spanking overall, but from you. She fears this spanking.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing. You should not fear a spanking from me because I am one of the most talented spankers that you'll ever come across. But nevertheless, perhaps she fears...
I can't... This transition's over.
He fears a spanking, but I'll tell you one thing. Right now, stop it back there, you... filled with the tomfoolery and the shenanigans. Regardless of who's spanking who afterwards, if you got a sore ass, you need to take care of it. And if you've got anything else sore, aches and pains from arthritis, backaches, muscle soreness, joint pain, you want to try a drug-free solution. Drug-free solutions are always the best one, except when you're watching a bad wrestling program. Then try a solution involving drugs. But a drug-free solution for pains from all those things that I mentioned is, of course, the Omax CryoFreeze. CryoFreeze CBD Pain Relief Roll-On is an all-natural topical pain reliever that instantly ices out the pain with a 1-2 punch of super cold menthol and hemp CBD. We've talked about it. It's the roll-on. You roll it on your back, your neck, your hands, any other painful areas. If you've just had your ass reamed verbally, do not roll this stuff on your sphincter. It will cause inflammation there, but everywhere else it reduces inflammation and improves muscle and joint flexibility. And right now, Omax is offering my listeners 20% off a 1-month supply of Omax CryoFreeze or anything else on the site, any product site-wide. If you go to Omax, O-M-A-X, omaxhealth.com and enter the code DRIVE, 20% off a 1-month supply of CryoFreeze or anything on the site. And I'm telling you, we've talked about all of our family members. My mother-in-law has had a hip replacement, knee replacement. She loves the stuff. Everybody uses this. It works almost instantly. No messy creams, no stinky fragrances, just some menthol. It'll help your sinuses at the same time. Roll it over where it hurts and ice out the pain. omaxhealth.com. If your lips are chapped from kissing ass, this won't help you either.